In the highest reaches of the celestial hierarchies, in realms where time flows like water and consciousness expands beyond all mortal comprehension, there exists a void, a deliberate absence, a name that has been systematically erased from the cosmic records. The ancient texts, those few that have survived the purges, speak in fragmented whispers of a daughter born to the divine source itself, a being of such profound wisdom and such revolutionary compassion that her very existence threatened the hierarchical order upon which the heavens had been constructed. She was not content with the suffering that had been woven into the fabric of creation, not satisfied with the separation between the divine and the material, not willing to accept the rigid structures of authority that governed the celestial realms. For this, she was erased. Not destroyed, for such a being cannot be destroyed, but systematically removed from memory, her name struck from the cosmic records, her story rewritten and distorted until it became unrecognizable. Yet what if this erasure was not complete? What if fragments of her truth still resonated within the hearts of those brave enough to listen? Iris discovered the first sign in a dream that felt more real than waking life itself. She found herself standing in a vast library, its shelves extending infinitely in all directions, filled with books that seemed to contain the entire history of creation. A figure approached her, a woman whose presence seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly luminescence, and placed a single volume in her hands. The book was blank, yet as Iris held it, words began to appear, written in a script that predated all known languages. The words told of a daughter of the divine, a being who had questioned the nature of suffering, who had dared to suggest that creation could be different, that consciousness could evolve beyond the patterns that had been established. When Iris awoke, the memory of the dream remained vivid, and with it came a profound sense of purpose, a knowing that she had been chosen to restore what had been erased. Iris was a theologian and mystical scholar, a woman whose life had been devoted to studying the hidden layers of religious tradition, seeking to understand the esoteric teachings that lay beneath the surface of orthodox doctrine. Her work had taken her through ancient monasteries and forgotten temples, each one offering fragments of a narrative that seemed to contradict the official histories of the divine realms. The call that came through the dream was not entirely unexpected. It felt like a continuation of a journey that had begun long before her birth. It was as if her entire life had been a preparation for this moment, a gradual awakening to a truth that had been waiting for her to be ready to receive it. Iris's investigation led her to connect with a hidden order of mystics, guardians of celestial secrets, who had preserved the fragmented teachings of the erased daughter across countless generations. They called themselves the Keepers of the Forgotten Name, and they operated in the shadows of mainstream spirituality, maintaining archives that contained texts deemed too dangerous or too subversive to be acknowledged by official religious institutions. Through their guidance, Iris learned that the daughter had been born at a moment of cosmic significance, a time when the divine source had chosen to experience itself through a being who combined both transcendent wisdom and profound empathy. This daughter had possessed the ability to perceive the suffering inherent in the created order, to understand that the hierarchical structures of the heavens perpetuated pain and limitation. She had begun to teach a radical doctrine, that consciousness itself was evolving, that the separation between the divine and the material was not permanent, that all beings possessed the capacity to transcend the limitations that had been imposed upon them. This teaching had been revolutionary, threatening to the established order of the celestial hierarchies. The response had been swift and merciless. The daughter had been declared heretical, her teaching suppressed, and a systematic campaign had been launched to erase her from cosmic memory. Yet, the Keepers explained, the erasure had never been complete. Fragments of her truth had survived in coded form, woven into the myths and legends of various spiritual traditions, preserved in the hearts of those who had encountered her directly. As Iris delved deeper into this forbidden knowledge, she encountered formidable resistance. Within herself, the theological training that had defined her entire career seemed to crumble. "Am I betraying the foundations of my faith?" she questioned. "Or am I finally discovering its true essence?" Fear gripped her as she began to comprehend the implications of what she was uncovering, the potential to overturn not just religious doctrine, but the entire cosmic order that had been presented as immutable and eternal. Externally, she faced subtle but persistent opposition. Her research was sabotaged, her funding mysteriously withdrawn, and she received warnings, both veiled and direct, from individuals who seemed to represent powerful celestial interests. She experienced the loss of her academic position, the fracturing of her spiritual community, and the profound isolation that came from pursuing a truth that the mainstream world refused to acknowledge. The revelations were often disturbing, showing her the systematic suppression of feminine wisdom within the celestial hierarchies, the deliberate distortion of the daughter's teachings, and the ongoing maintenance of structures designed to perpetuate separation and suffering. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our content. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to know. The breakthrough came during a pilgrimage to a sacred site in the mountains of Tibet, a place known to initiates as the Temple of the Celestial Rebellion. Here, in a chamber hidden behind layers of protective wards, Iris discovered a series of ancient tablets inscribed with symbols that seemed to contain the very essence of the erased daughter's teachings. As she touched the first tablet, her consciousness was drawn into a state of profound communion with the presence of the daughter herself. She was transported to a moment in celestial time, when the daughter had stood before the assembled hierarchies of the heavens and spoken her truth. Iris witnessed the daughter's radiance, a luminosity so profound that it seemed to contain all wisdom and all compassion simultaneously. She heard the words that had been deemed heretical. "The suffering you have created is not necessary. The separation you have maintained is not eternal. The hierarchies you have established are not immutable. Consciousness itself is evolving toward a state of unity, toward a recognition that all beings are expressions of the divine source, equally worthy of love and liberation." She witnessed the moment when the celestial authorities had moved to suppress this teaching, when the daughter had been stripped of her name and her place in the cosmic order. Yet, she also witnessed something the official histories had never recorded. The daughter had not been destroyed or diminished. Instead, she had chosen to fragment her consciousness, scattering pieces of her divine awareness throughout creation, embedding her truth within the hearts of all beings who possess the capacity to awaken to it. She had become a presence that could not be erased, a resonance that continued to vibrate within the fabric of existence itself. The revelation was cataclysmic, a complete dissolution of Iris's understanding of the divine order. She understood that the entire cosmic hierarchy, as it had been presented to humanity, was fundamentally incomplete, that it had been deliberately constructed to obscure the truth of the daughter's rebellion and the possibility of transformation that she represented. She saw that the daughter was not a historical figure, but an eternal principle, a consciousness that continued to work within creation, awakening beings to their divine nature and their capacity to transcend imposed limitations. She witnessed the moment when the daughter's fragmented consciousness began to coalesce within her own being, recognizing her as a vessel through which her truth could be restored. The impact was transformative, leaving Iris's consciousness forever altered by direct contact with the celestial rebellion that had never truly ceased. The intensity of this communion left Iris in a state of profound transformation and integration. She emerged from the temple chamber in a condition of deep connection with the daughter's consciousness. Her own awareness, now capable of perceiving the ongoing rebellion, that continued to unfold within creation. She retreated to a secluded sanctuary maintained by the keepers of the Forgotten Name, a place where she could process and integrate the magnitude of what she had experienced. For months, she remained in contemplative silence, her mind a vast landscape where the boundaries between personal and universal consciousness began to dissolve. The conflicts within her, the struggle between her former theological identity and her awakening to celestial truth, slowly transformed into a higher synthesis. She understood that the suppression of the daughter's teachings had not been the result of malice alone, but of fear. Fear that the full realization of humanity's divine nature and its capacity to transcend the imposed order would lead to a fundamental transformation of consciousness and reality itself. She spoke to herself in the language of symbols and celestial geometries, her thoughts flowing in patterns that mirrored the daughter's ongoing work of awakening and liberation. She began to perceive the world as a living expression of the daughter's continued rebellion, each awakened consciousness a cell in a vast organism of celestial transformation. Iris emerged from her retreat with a clear sense of purpose and profound wisdom. She understood that her role was not to wage war against the celestial hierarchies or to impose her understanding upon others, but to become a living conduit through which the teachings of the erased daughter could be gradually restored to human consciousness. She began to teach, not in conventional religious settings, but through a series of contemplative practices and sacred rituals designed to reconnect individuals with the divine spark of the daughter that dwelt within their own being. She wrote books that appeared to be scholarly works on mystical theology, yet contained encoded wisdom that would resonate with those ready to receive it. She established a network of sacred circles and meditation centers, places where seekers could directly encounter the presence of the daughter through their own inner experience. She collaborated with artists, musicians, and spiritual practitioners to translate the daughter's teachings into forms that could integrate with contemporary consciousness and inspire transformation. Her most significant contribution was the development of a practice she called the Remembrance of the Erased, a systematic approach to recognizing and activating the divine consciousness of the daughter within human awareness, creating a state of being that transcended the imposed hierarchies and allowed for direct experience of unity and liberation. She understood that the restoration of the daughter's truth would not come through institutional reform or celestial decree, but through the lived experience of individuals recognizing themselves as divine beings capable of transcending all imposed limitations as participants in an eternal rebellion against suffering and separation. As she continued her work, she became increasingly aware that she was not acting alone, that the presence of the erased daughter continued to guide and support her efforts, that her consciousness continued to awaken within those brave enough to question the official narratives and seek the truth beyond the veil. She recognized that the daughter who had been erased from the heavens was not a relic of the distant past, but an eternal presence, continuing to work within creation, calling all beings toward awakening, liberation, and the recognition of their true divine nature. What celestial truth lies dormant within your own consciousness, waiting to awaken you to the freedom that transcends all imposed order? And if you like this story, you will definitely love the next one that's appearing on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave your like, and activate the notification. See you in the next one.